All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vaguely Familiar podcast.
Dude, you're one of those like toxic positivity persons.
Ted Lasso. I've been watching a lot of Ted Lasso, bro. Did you finish the last episode yet?
I did watch it last night.
We should do this. Okay, never mind. We'll do a Ted Lasso one as well after. But anyways, this is the Vaguely Familiar podcast. I am Nazar Sayed. With me always my brother and co-host
Bashaar.
And today we're talking about, and very, very hesitantly talking about the new Dave Chappelle special called The Closer. It's on Netflix. It's brilliant. It's controversial. It's funny. It's scary. It's interesting. It's tense. What were your thoughts when you saw it, man? Because I have a lot of things to talk about, but I'm also very scared to talk about them. At the same time, I feel like it takes a lot of courage for someone like Dave Chappelle to keep talking about the things he's talking about. And yeah, anyways, I have lots of thoughts. What about you?
I think it's only because the fact that he's Dave Chappelle that he can say the things that he did.
Yeah.
But definitely he is pushing that line.
Yeah.
And you could even sense that by the audience. And some of them were like quite hesitant to know, like, should I be laughing at this? Should I not be laughing at this?
Yeah.
If I laugh, am I like part of the problem? You know?
Yeah.
So I thought it was overall really funny.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Did you think it was funny or not?
I thought it was funny.
You thought it was fun. You laughed.
I laughed.
I thought it was really funny too. Was it his best special? Probably not. Like some of the other ones that he did for Netflix were a little bit more funnier. I just think this was a little bit more thought-provoking. I still love the line that he said in a couple of specials ago where how do we live in a world where it's easier for Bruce Jenner to change his gender than it was for Cassius Clay to change his name? And that line still sticks out to me because that's like one of the most thought-provoking pieces of comedy that we've had in a while, where like you actually sit back and you realize, like, what are we fighting for? What are we actually talking about here? And yeah, I mean, some of the things that he said only Dave Chappelle could say. Like you said, but the way it's just his artistry, his oratory, as we call it, it's just unparalleled, man. The way he can talk, the way he can weave in and out of jokes, in and out of situations that you seem like, how can he come out of this? A joke that he makes in this beginning of the special keeps repeating, the Space Jews one, keeps repeating throughout.
The Clifford one.
Even the Clifford one. So he sets it up. And you think it's just a joke punchline situation, but it's actually a recurring thing in your head.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by it. What did you think about the internet backlash that he got? Justified? Not justified? Do you understand it? Do you not understand it? Do you think it's BS? Do you think he'll ever be canceled? What are your thoughts?
So I think the internet backlash was inevitable.
Yeah.
That was going to come, regardless of whatever he said.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not going to affect Dave Chappelle because, like he said in the special, that they're telling me that they're dragging me around on Twitter, but Twitter to me is not a real place.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
And that's what I mean, right? Like, that's the kind of kahunas you need to have a special like The Closer, which is in many respects, it felt like the end of a series, the end of an era, kind of, because when he came back in 2016 or 2017, he dropped 2 back-to-back specials, and like he reportedly got like, I don't know, $40-50 million for them, and pretty sure Netflix got their money's worth because they just went viral and people couldn't stop talking about it for like weeks because he dragged or he commented or he criticized movements that seemed like they were unable to be criticized for. Like, you could not say anything against the LGBTQ people, and you couldn't say anything against like, the Me Too people, because those were sensitive topics. Those are things that people are very passionate about, and they're very, very, I will cut your throat about this if you talk.
They're very cancelable things.
Yeah,
and
very
we've seen it
cancelable
happen like firsthand.
Kevin Hart.
With Kevin Hart, exactly. I was just gonna say, Kevin Hart's lifelong dream was to host the Oscars, and then when he was just so close to doing it, they brought back old tweets that were allegedly homophobic.
They dragged him.
and they dragged him. He couldn't host it anymore.
So this brings a very interesting question because we live in the modern world. There's no denying that. Depends on when you see this podcast. If you see this podcast in the 22nd century, then I guess this is prehistoric. But what are your thoughts on cancel culture?
I think people grow, right? And the stuff that you put out on the internet when you were like a teenager, right?
Yeah.
That should not really drag you down because people, they evolve.
Yeah.
And the same thing sort of happened with this one England cricketer, Ollie Robinson.
Yeah.
The night before he was supposed to debut for England, they brought back a lot of old tweets that were racist. They were homophobic, and that kind of put his whole
Career
on the line.
Do you think there should be some sort of retribution, some sort of, like if you said those things, like those are the wrong things to say, right? We agree with that. But let's say if you said it at a time where you were immature, you were not the same person you were. Like the Kevin Hart situation kind of bugs me because he said those things when 10 years ago, 2010 or 2011 was when those tweets were published. And he himself said he's not that person anymore. Is cancel culture just basically allowing people to stay stagnant in a time where maybe they were not so proficient with words or not so eloquent or mature enough to have those rational thoughts? Because people do evolve. Like in the past 10 years, the person that you were in 2010 is not the person that you are right now, will not be the person you will be in 2030, right? So I don't know. It just seems like people should be held accountable for things that they have done and said. But an apology is an apology. That's why it exists. That's why the words I apologize, and I forgive you exist, is because they come hand in hand. And what is the statute of limitations on that? We don't know. And
I think like in Dave Chappelle's case here, his argument is he's not trying to deny or kind of belittle the LGBTQ community of their struggles.
Yeah.
But he's saying, like he said in the special, like, I know you guys are going through this for decades, but his whole his whole campaign is against racial abuse. Yeah. Right. And that's been going on for centuries.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole point that he was trying to make.
It was an interesting comparison he made against not against, but the comparison between the LGBTQ movement that kind of caught a wave, caught a flame, and like everybody's very cognizant, very respectful. Okay, this is what this is what that is. People who may have been conservative even are like at the point where like, yeah, okay, I understand. Your rights are rights. Your existence is your existence, and we respect that. As opposed to a movement like the Black Lives Matter, which gets ridiculed, which gets hate for, which gets, it's just, it gets really ugly when you talk about Black Lives Matter on the internet because there are very strong opposing sides for that movement. And I think that what he was just trying to highlight was like, there is a hypocrisy and this is what it is. And let me make some jokes about it. And here we go.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the special? Because some of the jokes that he made are still funny to me. Like only he can get away with those jokes. The Asians versus black people joke.
Yeah.
I was drinking coffee and I did a spit take. That was how funny that I thought that was. His whole joke at the Walmart, hilarious.
He kept bringing back the baby joke as well.
The baby joke, yeah. Like that stuff was, again, it's very, very thought-provoking, very like,
That was also like, it was thought-provoking as well because he said that the baby killed somebody at Walmart, but he never got canceled for that.
He's getting canceled for homophobic slurs, which is, again, wrong. But he's just trying to oppose to these two ideas and being like, what are we valuing here? Are we valuing feelings versus real life? Or is it all theatrics? But my favorite joke, as I was saying, was, well, my favorite story, I guess, because Chappelle is more of a storyteller than he is a jokester. I feel like the jokes that he made landed and they made me laugh really hard. But at the end, every Chappelle special is you thinking about something in a different way. And the trans community, I thought about them in a very, very different light after his Diana story.
Daphne.
My bad. His Daphne story, and this is why I feel like as a writer I envy Chappelle. He literally is a storyteller. He creates worlds. At one point I forgot that I was watching a man tell a story, and I was in the story of Daphne. I was at the crowd. I was in the crowd where Daphne was opening up. I was there. And Hassan Minhaj does this really well too. He has a very good authority on storytelling. And then he takes you on this journey, and you're laughing, and it's really fun until the punchline happens. And he's like, spoiler alert, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned in the beginning, but we're going to go full deep. He talks about when Daphne killed herself.
Yeah.
And immediately you're laughing, you're having a good time, and then you're just like, what? Whoa. And he just doesn't skip through it. He's like, I took you here, and I'm going to nail it home.
Yeah. And then he followed that by making like a really dark joke as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, like Dave can do that.
I mean, that to me, that's him at his best.
Mm-hmm.
That is him making me feel things, making me laugh, making me think, and making me feel really, really uncomfortable, all in a span of like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And when that story ended and the special ended, I wanted to stand up and clap. I was like, I went through a journey in this hour and 12 minutes. I don't think anybody else had the capabilities. Like, obviously there are great comedians out there who have certain abilities, but the way that Chappelle does it, that's why he's the living GOAT. Everyone across the board is like, yeah,
he's the undisputed GOAT.
Undisputed GOAT. And I loved that little after the special ended, you see his black and white pictures with his friends. Kanye was there. John Mayer was there. Joe Rogan, all of them were there, right?
Yeah.
And I like that he ended the whole special for Norm. Like, he tributed it to Norm McDonald. And yeah, it was just like one of those things where after the special ended, I texted you. I was like, you need to watch this.
Yeah.
You can hate it. You can completely find it not funny. You can completely find it unjustifiable and rude and arrogant and mean. But I think it is worth a watch because he is one of our most public orators. He speaks his mind, and there is value in that.
Yeah, I will definitely have to agree with you. Like, watching his special, and especially this one, was like being immersed into the universe that he was kind of creating on the go. And I felt it the most when he was telling that whole Daphne story.
Yep.
And it came to an abrupt end, and I was like, wow, man, this is like someone's life at stake.
Yeah.
And in the end, he also talks about how Daphne said that she's just having a human experience.
Yeah.
So
Respect my
we need
experience.
to. That kind of made me empathize a lot with them.
Yeah.
Because we need to humanize the whole process. Like,
Yeah.
these people they're real people. They're
Yeah.
having real emotions.
Yeah, they're going through real things.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
They
Just because I think they lack the empathy, or they
don't understand.
don't understand. Yeah.
Most of the things that like people that have hatred towards or that they don't respect are just things that they don't understand. And it's tough. And I'm glad that Chappelle brought it up. I'm glad that Chappelle talked about it the way that he did. It was eye-opening. Every time I walk through a Chappelle special, I always come out a little bit more different than I went in before. Maybe I thought about something in a different way. Maybe I thought about certain movements in a different way. And it's always positive. It's never negative. Coming to the online abuse that he gets and his specials get, I get it. I don't necessarily always agree with it, but I get where people could be angry about it. It's also like the things that he was talking about is that people just sometimes read headlines, and I would love to see the survey of the people who are shitting on him, who actually saw the special, the whole hour and 12 minutes. And if they saw the same things that you and I did, maybe they saw a different thing. Maybe they saw abuse and terror and meanness and arrogance. And I guess that's what they perceived it as. I saw it as community and humor and thought-provoking aspects of it. And just
I can definitely tell you who did not find it to be all those things were the two people in the front of the crowd.
God. Those two white women in the second row. And they were visibly not laughing. Like, everybody around them were laughing, and it was so obvious. I wonder whose because I know this stuff goes through like thousands of rounds of editing. I wonder if this was a conscious decision to keep them in, because usually how these specials are shot is like it's not one night. They shoot it over like a couple of nights, and then they splice like scenes from this night, from that night. Having them there, that's a very conscious decision.
And constantly panning the camera in
behind him so that, yeah. Well, rest in peace to them is what I said on Twitter. I was like, whoa, like I'm pretty sure these people are not having a good time. I hope that
I'm shocked they didn't just stand up and walk out.
That would have been, I guess, I'm pretty sure this crowd is like they're told that you're being recorded.
And like also if you're like, going to a Dave Chappelle show, like you have to have some sort of anticipation that these things are going to be on the table. Yeah.
Do you actually believe when he said that he's not going to joke about the LGBTQ and the trans community that this is the last we've heard from him, or is he just?
It's very much possible, because this whole special to me felt like Dave Chappelle was trying to like clarify his stance, what it's been.
Yeah.
And he was quite adamant to people to go back and listen to his older stuff.
Yeah.
And sort of pinpoint where he was against the whole community. So I feel like this could be the last one, because it felt like a conscious decision by him to come out and just do this whole special just for the sake of clarifying his stance and his point of view.
Yeah.
So we might be seeing something very different from him going forward.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll ever come back to sketch comedy, because the Chappelle Show season 1 and 2 are hilarious. Our boy Kanye and our boy Mayor was on it, and like stuff like that. I wonder if he's ever gonna go back to that, because his 6 stand-up specials and some of his monologues on Saturday Night Live, which have won Emmys, by the way, or were nominated at least for Emmys, are amazing. They're historical. They'll go down in the history books as when people 50, 60 years from now look back, like how we do at like Richard Pryor and we do at Eddie Murphy and their stuff. They will look back and be like, oh yeah, that was a moment in time. And I wonder if he's like, I've said what I've said. There's nothing left for me to say. That's it. Moving on. Because Dave Chappelle is one of our great thinkers. Remember when the George Floyd stuff happened, and he released 846?
Mm-hmm.
That was moving. Like, in between the pandemic, in between a social uprising, he's in Ohio on a farm with socially distanced crowd, and he's talking about these very real emotions as a black person, as a Muslim, and he's like, this is what we're going through. What are we talking about? What are we fighting about? This is happening in real life. And that's not a first. And I love when he brings in his own life, and he was talking about how he got pulled over and how he had these similar experiences as such. And it's just, I don't know. Is he one of the last free thinkers? Is he the last free talkers of our generation before we absolutely get shut up and we're not allowed to say anything?
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly.
Because John Mayer used to be like that. He used to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about until he had a really public meltdown, and he stopped to the point where he released a new album and no podcast interviews, none. And you're just like, really? Come on. I love when he talks. I love when he thinks out loud. I love when he thinks freely. And when you think freely, sometimes you go through, like, in Harry Potter, there was the restricted section. Sometimes you think about those things and you come up with bad ideas, but then out of those bad ideas come good ideas as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like,
but it's just really, really concerning to me.
We're living in an era where everybody needs to be like politically correct.
Yeah.
And sometimes to do that, you need to like put a filter through your brain. And when things come out of your mouth. So it definitely makes you like think twice before saying anything, which is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely great special. Excited to see what Dave Chappelle has in store going forward.
For sure. Before closing thoughts, for the closing thoughts, is there anything you'd want to add that hasn't been said? Is there anything? I know this is a quick one, but I really wanted to get our thoughts down, just because maybe like 2-3 years from now, we'll have a new Dave Chappelle special, and we'd want to go back and look at this and be like, what do we think about the closer? And for me, it was just a great, well-rounded Dave Chappelle special where he speaks his mind. It's very well thought out. It's funny. It always remained funny. I saw it once in its entirety, and then I saw clips on it online on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, and it comes up and I still laugh. He's one of the great thinkers, one of the great orators of our time, and yeah, it's just it's great. I like it. I would highly recommend. Even if you don't like him, I would say check it out.
Likewise, and if you haven't seen any of his past specials, probably go in sequence because he does refer to his old ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great thinker. He is. We need to really value and cherish him.
Yeah.
And again, looking forward to what he has in store. This was a great series that he had of all the specials with Netflix.
Looking forward to next stuff as always with Chappelle stuff.
Yeah.
I guess this is the end of this podcast. It's a quick one. I think it's like a little bit over 20 minutes. That's fine. Coming up next, I guess, I didn't know that Bashaar finished Ted Lasso. We're definitely going to be diving deep into Ted Lasso stuff. It's one of my favorite shows of this year. I don't know. You have some differing opinions. I think you enjoy it still. But some characters in that show, wonderfully written, great arcs, great turns. Some are good people, some are bad people. Whatever it is, right? We'll talk deep into Ted Lasso territory. Finishing up Squid Games.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Squid Games very soon as well. Any show that you want to bring up? You're watching Seinfeld. Maybe we'll do a Seinfeld deep dive.
I am watching Seinfeld. I'm a huge Jerry Seinfeld fan.
Yeah.
I think he's like personally my favorite comedian out there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to like watch Seinfeld. It just came out on Netflix.
And you're watching it for the first time, right?
It's my first time watching it.
And just out of the bat, what's your experience so far?
It's a show about nothing.
Literally.
It's literally a show about nothing.
And it's amazing how they pulled it off.
It is
9 seasons of just amazingness. Because I'm also like midway through Seinfeld as well. So we'll probably bring up Seinfeld at some point. There's a debate that I wanted to do. It's on my Notions list of topics that we want to talk about. And what is, because we don't watch a lot of sitcoms, but we've seen probably some of the best ones that people acclaim, and Office versus Friends versus Seinfeld versus, I don't know, How I Met Your Mother or Scrubs or whatever it is, right? Modern Family. I want to have that debate with you once we sort of get through all of them. So yeah, lots of exciting things coming up at the Vaguely Familiar podcast. This was a long time coming. Ever since I saw the special, I wanted to talk about it. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, I'm dead. So likewise. And this was another episode of Real Time.
Yep.
We're on Anchor now,
yes,
where you can send us like voice messages.
You can send us voice messages. You can go on polls. You can do all that great thing on Anchor. We'll link it in the description stuff. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, subscribe, like. It really helps with the algorithm, guys. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts as well. That helps a lot on the charts. If you have any criticism, anything that you think that we should improve on, shoot us a message. We're receptive to all sort of bad mouthing. Anyways, this is Nazar. I'm signing out.
This is Bashaar signing out.
And take care of yourselves, guys.